Hey there, Lisa here. Welcome to my channel. I hope you'll join me in my love of crafting and DIYs and hit that subscribe button. This video is part of the Napkin Exchange collaboration. Generally, there is a host and one co-host, and we exchange napkins. However, this month, the host is our lovely Sarah, and we all get to co-host, and we are using napkins from our stash. So everybody's channels will be linked in the playlist with their videos. So be sure to visit the host's channel and visit the playlist to see everybody else's videos. I've been wanting to do one of these ornaments, and I've been wanting to use this napkin that I use, so I decided just to combine the two. First thing I did was use some white acrylic paint and gave it a good coat of white paint just so that I have a nice clean white surface to adhere my napkin to. Then I take my napkin and I am just going to fussy cut the camper and the trees out, and this takes a long time and requires lots of patience, but I'm trying to build that patience thing, and actually I don't mind cutting at all. If you prefer, you could use the paintbrush and water technique like what I do for my snowflakes in the riser in this video. All right, got it cut out. So then I am going to take and remove the ply. I find it easier to cut these when the ply is attached. You could remove it first, but I find it to be easier with that little bit of it since it's thicker. So I go ahead and remove the back ply, and then I take Mod Podge and apply Mod Podge where I'm going to lay it down, and then I lay it down where I want it, and then I just take and smooth it out with my fingers. Some people smooth with plastic wrap or like a scraper or something. I tend to rip things when I do that. I have to be able to feel it, so I like to use my fingers. So I make sure that there's a good coat of Mod Podge on the underneath and that it is smoothed down. I do take a light coat and go over the edges especially, and just a little bit over the top. And when I say light coat, super light coat. Next, I take some painter's tape and I take a chunk and then I actually cut it in half because I need thinner painter's tape for this project. And so I take and cut it in half, and I am just going to mark off a line down here at the bottom so that I can paint a stripe. First, I apply a coat of Mod Podge, as doing that tends to, in my experience, give you cleaner, crisper lines. So I do the same process on the top as well. Now, once the Mod Podge is dry is when you apply your paint. I got impatient and my Mod Podge was not completely dry, and I'm going to tell you what happened. I did not get the good, crisp, clear lines that I should have. So make sure that your Mod Podge is good and dry, and in my experience, you will have really nice lines. Now, because I did not take my own advice, I had a lot of bleeding when I peeled off the tape, which then required me to take and touch up with a brush. So, you would think lesson learned. It takes me longer to do it when I become impatient, but no, probably not. So that is what you see me doing here, is just kind of touching up. I touched up the black, I touched up the white, and then, you go over just a little bit. So then you got to touch up the other color. I think you guys get the point. I did find that if I used my piece of tape and sort of laid it up there and then painted, that tended to work pretty well, and then just wipe off any excess. So I guess I did learn something. Once I had my stripes touched up and good and dry, I took some parchment paper and just ironed the surface where I had applied the napkin. It does smooth out wrinkles amazingly well. I just want to do the blue snow falling like they had on the napkin, but I thought it would just look better than trying to piece the napkins together to get it to go all the way across if I just did the dots myself. So that is what I am doing here. I'm just using this light blue acrylic paint and then the end of a paintbrush to make these dots, and I find this so relaxing and fun. I don't know why. I did this process on a little sign I did last year. I will link that video below, and I just really enjoyed it. So I was happy to be doing this again. So I did end up using two different paintbrushes, one with a smaller end and one with a bigger end, just so that they weren't all the same size. And you just get paint on the end and then dab it on, and you kind of want like almost just a little blob. I don't know how better to explain that. It really is just blobbing on dots, and it's surprisingly relaxing and fun. So this is a chunk of the cookie sheets, the disposable cookie sheets that you get at the Dollar Tree. And I am just taking my scraper and smoothing it out flat. And then once I get it smooth, I take and cut it down so that I can put it over the top of our ornament here. But first, I need to add a string because I am going to glue that cookie sheet piece right over the top. So I take this little thin black ribbon and loop it through and knot it at the top so that I have a hanger for my piece. Then I just use a little dab of hot glue, hardly any at all, and apply my cookie sheet. And be sure to be careful because it will be hot. And then I just wrap it around the edges, and then I'm going to trim off most of the excess. I want just enough to cover just the edges there. So then I fold it over and again take just a little bit of hot glue and glue it down. Final step in this process is on the white areas outside my stripes. I take and add some Mod Podge, and then I do not let it dry, and I take my Buffalo Snow and just apply it on there just to give it a little bit of shine and also another texture. I repeat the same exact process on the bottom, and this took a little longer than planned because I would get the Mod Podge outside of the area and then I'd have to scrape it off. It ends up looking kind of cool. I kind of like the way it turns out. I'd like to know what you guys think. I lied. The Buffalo Snowflakes was not my last step. My last step was to take this marker and go around the edges and just darken the edges. And I learned this. These are the permanent markers from the Dollar Tree, and they're so slick because they're angled. I learned this from Amy at Bella's Bargains. So if you haven't checked her out yet, be sure to do that. I'm pretty sure she's going to be on this playlist. And here you go. Here is a look at it. We got to zoom in and see all the different textures. You can see my little blobs, how smooth that napkin turned out. Even with all of the issues I had, I feel like this turned out really fun. I was torn on whether it needed to say something. Love to know what you guys think. Do you like it? Should it say something? What do you think? Drop me some comments below. So the first thing I did to make this riser was took 3 of these snowflake cutouts from the Dollar Tree, and I used a combination of wood glue, lots of wood glue, as well as hot glue between them, and then I stuck them together. The first one I get just a little bit crooked, but it was stuck. So I just go with it, and then I attach the other one, and then once I get them all 3 stuck, I use clamps to keep them together. And I take this nail hole filler and fill the hole on both sides. I removed the clamps once it had dried, and then I sanded down my nail hole filler. And then I took white acrylic paint on a baby wipe and gave it a good coat. And then I took my napkin, and be sure to separate the ply. And I took and I used a paintbrush with a little bit of water to cut it out. I usually use scissors and just kind of fussy cut it, but I see crafters do this all the time, and I love the way it looks. And so I'm like, you know what? I am going to keep trying this until I get it perfected. And so I get it all cleaned up, and then I do several more, and then I take and just apply a little bit of Mod Podge, and then I like to smooth it down with my fingers. I know some people use saran wrap or like scrapers of some sort, but for me it just works best to do my fingers. And so then I lay them down, smooth them out, and then a little bit of Mod Podge over the top. We're going to do the same process all the way around, and I just sort of haphazardly placed them where I thought that they looked good. And then I took, once it had dried, and I did the burn method to get the excess napkin. I quickly realized that this just stinks up your house. So you should really do this in a ventilated area. I chose to take it outside, and so that is what I am doing here. I apologize. I know this is a really weird angle. And then there was one spot where it burn down the napkin, and that tends to happen if it isn't really adhered real well, and that is what happened. So I just sanded that area a little bit more than I did the others. I was going for a rustic look anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. And I fought with my nail file to get between there and ended up just finally cutting my nail file in half, and that worked perfectly. So sand, downward motion to get the edges nice and flush. And then I take some parchment paper and my teeny tiny mini iron, and this just smooths out the bubbles or any wrinkles. It's really quite amazing how well this works. And then I do that for all of the snowflakes. So this is a tuna fish can and a round cutout, and I am going to hot glue them together. This is what I'm going to use for my base. So I get that hot glued, and then I do a nice light coat over the top of Mod Podge. You don't want a lot or else you'll bubble up again. Then I take and do the Mod Podge on the tuna can as well. Paint doesn't stick real well to metal, but the Mod Podge tends to help it a little bit. And I'm going to trace out on the bottom of my snowflake where I want it. And the reason being is because I am going to do the white applied with the baby wipe around the edges, because I want good wood to wood glue area. So that's why I don't paint this portion. So I use wood glue and hot glue, and then I take and glue the tuna can and the round wooden cutout to the riser. And then I take and paint my can, and same, I just use acrylic paint, only not watered down this time, and it took probably 3 coats to get it covered nice and well. Finally, I take a little bit of acrylic paint watered down, and the reason I did this rather than the baby wipe technique is because of the fuzzies that stick on it. It's real bad on the edges. So this is just so that I can give a little bit of that white look to the edges of the riser as well. And the sponge brush didn't work well. The smallest brush I had worked pretty well. And then I take some antique wax on my little chippy brush, and I just apply it pretty heavily around the edges. And I always feel like I'm going to do like not super heavy, and then I always end up doing more than I anticipate. And then I decide to go across the ends to the snowflake and all across the front, and then I do it around the base as well. And that is it for this one. Now, I would suggest a good coat of like dishwasher safe Mod Podge if you're going to be using this for like drinks or anything with condensation. My intention for this is to hold napkins and the salt and pepper and maybe a little decorative piece. So I did not do a coat of dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Here it is. Here's the riser. It makes a really fun little festive centerpiece for my table. I would love to know what you guys think. Is this something that you would ever make? You could make it taller or double layered or so many different options. Be sure to comment below your thoughts. This is sort of a bonus video. I did not intend to make this, but I decided that I needed something to hold my pretty napkins. So I took 4 of these snowflake cutouts from the Dollar Tree, and I filled in the holes with the nail hole filler, and then I took and applied white acrylic paint with a baby wipe. So I took and applied the paint directly to the snowflake, and then I take and wipe it down each area there with the baby wipe. The only problem with doing this method is you do get a lot of fuzzies on these because it catches on the edges and fuzzes the baby wipe. It helps if you only use one area for like one wipe, but you're still going to get them. And so you'll see me take and try and pull all those off. I take a poker tool and poke them out and then pull them off. And it is a little bit time consuming, but I still think it saves time versus trying to hand paint these. So I complete that process for all 4 of the snowflakes, and we are going to do front, back, and then I go around and dab around the sides the best that I can as well. Then I take these tumbling tower blocks that you get at the toy section in the Dollar Tree, and I add a couple dabs of wood glue and then a couple dabs of hot glue and glue them together. Now I would suggest, I guess it depends on what your plan is with them, but it may be easier just to use the hot glue. I feel like it's such a small surface for the wood glue. maybe just using hot glue would have been easier, but this is what I ended up doing. And so I'm going to glue two together, and then I'm going to glue them all end to end together as well. And basically what I'm doing is making a little base for my napkin holder. Once they had dried and were good and adhered, I took the antique wax and a baby wipe and just gave it a good coat just to darken the wood. And I really love applying antique wax like this. I just think it's just so gorgeous color that it gives it. So for gluing the snowflakes to the holder, I used super glue, and this is my favorite super glue. It is the gel Loctite glue, and I love the tube that it comes in. It's nice and precise, and you get a small amount. So I am just gluing the tips together here, top and bottom. There's not really a lot of glue surface there, so this is actually mostly just so that I have them held together well enough so that then I can glue them with lots of super glue to the bottom portion. And so once I get the two glued together, then I glue the other two together in the exact same manner. Then I take and add the same gel super glue and glue it to my base. And this is just a very simple little napkin holder, like super simple, but it's just enough to stand up straight and to hold a package of these drink napkins. And so once I have that one glued, I take and do the same exact process on the other side. And that's it for this project. All right, here it is. So what do you think of this little napkin holder? I think it's really festive and fun, especially with these bright red snowflake napkins. But I would love to know what you guys think. Be sure to comment below and let me know if this is something that you would ever make. Do you like it? Give me your thoughts. Don't forget to check out the playlist for other napkin inspiration. And here is a final look at everything. So we have the camper ornament with all the different textures. And then we have the little napkin holder, perfect for beverage size. And then we have the centerpiece riser that I made. Love to know what you guys think. If you like the video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you want to see more content from me, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you watching, and I'm wishing you the best holiday season yet.